Imagine being told one day that you only have a few years left to live. Your body is slowly abandoning you. Your muscles are weakening. Your ability to speak is slipping away. And yet, your mind is still alive, still wandering freely through the depths of the universe. This is the story of Stephen Hawking. His body was bound in chains, but his mind was a doorway to infinity. At an age when life should have just been beginning, it seemed like his future was already closing, but instead it became the start of the greatest journey of his life, uncovering the mysteries of the cosmos. Hawking was not just a scientist, he was a symbol. A figure who pushed the boundaries of what it means to be human, who overcame obstacles that seemed impossible. His story reminds us of something powerful. True freedom lies not in the body, but in transcending the limits of the mind. Defying his own destiny, he reshaped physics with groundbreaking work on black holes. But beyond science, he gave millions something even greater: hope. Because Hawking refused to surrender, even under the harshest limitations of the human body. At the age of 21, his diagnosis with a fatal disease was supposed to be the end, but instead it became a beginning. ALS may have taken his body, but it never took his mind. In fact, it only sharpened it, made it shine brighter, like a star in the night sky. People began to see not his wheelchair, but his ideas. From the mysteries of black holes to the beginning of time, from the fate of the universe to the future of humankind, Hawking brought the greatest questions of science into everyday life. What made him extraordinary wasn't only his intelligence, it was also his humor, his courage, and his perspective on life. Even when speaking about the dark voids of the universe, there was always a faint smile on his face. It was his way of showing that he had chosen life, despite everything. Never underestimate the power of the mind, he seemed to say, because the real disability is giving up on thinking. That is why Stephen Hawking's story is not only a story of science, it is a story of the strength of the human spirit. It is the story of a man who never stopped hoping, creating, and learning, even under the harshest conditions. His life reminds us to keep looking up at the stars, to keep imagining, and to never give up. Stephen Hawking's path to greatness was anything but ordinary. When he was a young boy in Oxford, England, he was not seen as a genius at first glance. In fact, teachers described him as an average student, sometimes even lazy, someone who daydreamed more than he studied. But there was something hidden in his mind, an unusual curiosity about how things worked. While others were satisfied with simple answers, Hawking wanted to know why and how. His classmates nicknamed him Einstein, not because he was top of the class, but because they sensed there was something different about the way he thought. That curiosity carried him to the University of Oxford at the age of just 17. There, he studied physics. But again, he wasn't the hardest worker. Instead, he preferred discussion, debate, and creative thinking. He once admitted that he studied for only about an hour a day in his first years at Oxford. Yet when exam time came, his brilliance shone through. He could solve problems not by memorization, but by seeing connections that others overlooked. He graduated with honors and then moved to Cambridge for his PhD, a place that would define the rest of his life. But it was in Cambridge that his destiny shifted. At just 21 years old, Hawking began to stumble, to lose control of his muscles. After a series of tests, doctors gave him the devastating diagnosis: amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, a disease that would gradually paralyze him, rob him of movement, speech, and ultimately, his life. They gave him just 2 or 3 years to live. Imagine being 21, full of dreams, and suddenly told that your time was almost up. For a while, Hawking sank into despair. He admitted later that he felt his life was over before it had even begun. But something inside him refused to quit. The more his body betrayed him, the stronger his mind fought back. He married his first wife, Jane, who became his anchor through the early storm. Jane's unwavering support gave Hawking the strength to continue his PhD research, even as his body weakened. It was in this period that he began working on what would become one of his most groundbreaking contributions: the study of black holes. Until then, black holes were mysterious, terrifying concepts, regions of space where gravity was so strong that not even light could escape. They were seen as dead ends of the universe. But Hawking dared to ask, could they actually reveal something deeper about the laws of nature? In 1974, he proposed something radical. Black holes are not entirely black. They actually emit radiation, now famously called Hawking radiation. This meant black holes could eventually evaporate and disappear, something scientists had never imagined. This discovery shook the world of physics and placed him among the greatest minds of his generation. Suddenly, the young man who had been given only a few years to live was at the forefront of cosmology. His name would forever be linked to one of the most mysterious phenomena in the universe. But Hawking's genius wasn't only in equations, it was in communication. In 1988, he published A Brief History of Time, a book that explained the origins of the universe, the nature of time, and the fate of black holes in a way ordinary people could understand. The book became a worldwide bestseller, staying on the Sunday Times list for an astonishing 237 weeks. Millions who had never cared about physics before were suddenly fascinated by the cosmos. Hawking had achieved what very few scientists could. He had brought science into the living rooms of everyday people. He had made the universe exciting, mysterious, and accessible. As his fame grew, so did the progression of his disease. He lost the ability to speak in 1985 after a tracheotomy during a health crisis. From then on, his voice came through a speech-generating device, controlled first by his hand and later by the movement of a single cheek muscle. And yet, this mechanical voice became iconic. It wasn't a weakness, it was a symbol. That robotic tone carried wisdom, humor, and inspiration to millions around the world. It became part of his identity. In a way, it made him even more memorable. Despite his condition, Hawking never stopped teaching, writing, and exploring. He traveled the world, gave lectures to packed audiences, and collaborated with leading scientists. He explored questions that go beyond physics. Is time travel possible? Did the universe need a creator? What is humanity's future among the stars? He warned about the dangers of artificial intelligence, climate change, and nuclear weapons, believing that our survival would one day depend on reaching other planets. His work wasn't just about understanding the universe, it was about ensuring humanity had a future in it. What makes his story so compelling is not only his brilliance, but his resilience. He once said, "My expectations were reduced to 0 when I was 21. Everything since then has been a bonus." That mindset transformed his life. He didn't measure himself by what he couldn't do. He measured himself by what he could do. And what he could do was extraordinary. Push the boundaries of science and inspire the entire world. Think about it. A man who could not move, who could not speak without a computer, became one of the most famous voices of the modern age. His lectures were sold out like rock concerts. His books reached millions. He even appeared in popular shows like The Simpsons and Star Trek, becoming a cultural icon far beyond the world of science. Everywhere he went, he reminded people that disability does not mean inability, that the human spirit, when determined, can surpass the limits of the body. Stephen Hawking turned what should have been a story of tragedy into one of triumph. Instead of being remembered as a man who lost to disease, he became a man who conquered the universe with his mind. As we reach the end of Stephen Hawking's extraordinary journey, we are reminded of a truth that transcends science, fame, and even time itself. Greatness is not defined by the limits of the body, but by the power of the mind and the resilience of the spirit. Hawking lived in a body that grew weaker each year, yet his mind reached places humanity had only dreamed of. He turned silence into a voice that echoed across the world, and he turned suffering into inspiration for millions. Hawking once said, "However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at." These words were not just philosophy, they were the way he lived. Even when the odds were stacked against him, he refused to give up. He embraced life as it was, with humor, with curiosity, and with determination. And in doing so, he showed us that every obstacle can be a gateway to possibility. His scientific contributions will live on in equations, in textbooks, and in the minds of future physicists. But his legacy is far greater than radiation or cosmology. His legacy is hope. Hope that the human spirit can rise above disease, above disability, above fear. Hope that knowledge and imagination are limitless if we only dare to ask the right questions. Hope that even when life seems unfair, we can still find meaning, joy, and purpose. Stephen Hawking's life reminds us that we are part of something much bigger, the universe itself. He helped us see that the stars above are not distant strangers, but part of our own story. He often spoke of humanity's future among the stars, urging us to look beyond Earth and imagine what is possible. He believed that curiosity is the fuel of survival, that as long as we continue to seek answers, we will continue to evolve. And yet, perhaps the most important lesson he left us has nothing to do with the cosmos, but everything to do with life here on Earth. Do not waste time. Time, he reminded us, is the most precious resource we have. His own time was supposed to be short, yet he stretched it into 76 remarkable years filled with achievement and inspiration. For him, every day was a gift, and he treated it as such. Imagine this: a man who could not walk, could not move, could not speak without a computer, still became one of the most famous scientists and cultural icons in human history. That fact alone should make us stop and reflect. If he could achieve all this with so many limitations, what excuses do we really have? His story is not meant to make us feel small, but to remind us of the strength we already carry inside ourselves. Stephen Hawking passed away in 2018, fittingly on Einstein's birthday. It was as if the universe itself had marked his departure with symbolism. Yet even in death, he lives on, in the knowledge he gave us, in the inspiration he left us, and in the unshakable belief that life is worth living, no matter how hard it may seem. So tonight, as you reflect on Hawking's journey, remember this: resilience is power, curiosity is freedom, and hope is eternal. When you look up at the stars, know that Stephen Hawking helped bring them a little closer to us all. And now, if Hawking's story has inspired you even a fraction as much as it has inspired the world, I invite you to take part in keeping that light alive. Please like this video to help share his message of resilience and discovery. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the journeys of other great minds who shaped our world. And leave a comment below. Tell us what Stephen Hawking means to you and which remarkable figure you'd like to see us explore next. Your thoughts, your voice, are what keep this conversation alive. Because just as Hawking taught us, knowledge grows when it is shared, and inspiration spreads when it is spoken aloud. Let's continue his mission together.